Well, what is sweet and crunchy and packed full of caffeine? No, it is not your grandmother after breakfast in a bear hug. That's not it. But I guess that is another answer. No, it's Dunkin Donuts' 2 new breakfast cereals, Caramel Macchiato and Mocha Latte. Yeah, that's right. Dunkin' has teamed up with Post Cereal to make this miracle of consumer science happen. And all it took was some crunchy orbs of grain, teeny little marshmallows, and Dunkin' coffee concentrate to top it all off. Now, if you're like me, this story has probably got you a little glazed and confused. So I think the point is, if I'm too busy to eat a bowl of cereal and drink a cup of coffee, I can now do it all at one time. What a time saver. But I wonder if Post cereals will get into the Dunkin' stores. I mean, who wouldn't want a Raisin Bran latte or a shredded wheat macchiato?
Yeah.
Whole wheat.
Ooh.
Social media responses range from bright hope to impending taste bud doom. One person tweeted, "If I don't get to try the Dunkin' Donuts cereal, I will absolutely lose my mind." I would counter that I will have lost my mind if I try it.
Yeah.
And then there was a 10-year-old girl who said they should just make donut cereal. Well, we shouldn't forget the 80s when Dunkin' Donuts tried the breakfast cereal game, filling boxes with little chocolate glazed donuts. It did not end well. You know, I remember when my doctor told me I should eat more whole foods, and I thought he said Whole Foods, H-O-L-E foods. Boy, that turned out to be a 10-pound misspelling, I'll tell you. Well, with the aftermath of the pandemic's impact on businesses, as well as 65% of Americans drinking coffee and over 90% buying breakfast cereals, we wish them well. Perhaps we will one day be saying America crunches on Dunkin'. Who knows? Well, as you know, we love to celebrate people who stand out with special talents or break through the clutter of the news. Well, Jacob Pena definitely fits that bill. You see, this 21-year-old has a thumb that measures anywhere from 2 inches to 5.5 inches long. And no, it is not a medical condition or weather-related. Nope. Although it seems like a great talent for hitchhiking, it certainly would work for that. Jacob has built quite the following on TikTok, posting videos on life with his unique thumb talent.
You know, Gav, that's really interesting because, I accidentally super glued my thumb and forefinger together last night.
Wow.
It's so odd.
That's terrible, Trey.
Yeah. No. Everything's okay. It's all good. I got...
Well, excuse me, but did you guys know I'm a lifelong friend with a judge that has no thumbs? You know what they call him?
No.
Just his fingers. Just his fingers. Just his fingers.
You know, if you ask me, when it comes to telling jokes, you both need some help.
We need help, that's
yeah.
for sure.
Yes, this is...
Hey, look, I still remember a state senator back in Arkansas who bumbled his way to winning his election despite being all thumbs. Yeah. See what I did there? Yeah. Okay, back to Jacob Pena.
Yeah.
His secret to the 5.5-inch thumb, Jacob says, now think about this, I just dislocate my thumb by forcing it out of its socket to make it appear longer. Ugh. By the way, he never thought his weird thumb trick would win him more than 1 million followers on TikTok. Well, Jacob, we want to say all of us here on the Huckabee Show give you and your talent a big thumbs up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. There is a man named Sandro from Germany. He's a tattoo addict. And he set a new goal. He wants to make his head look like a living skull. This is disgusting. This guy spent over $8,000 in his quest so far. Sandro is known as Mr. Skullface on social media, and he says all his tattoos and body modifications, some 17 in all, have made him more confident.
Well, Governor, I got to admit something here. A while back, I wanted to surprise my wife and show her I was still hip.
Yeah?
So I got a tattoo of a cuckoo clock and a $100 bill on my stomach. You know what she said when I showed her?
No, what?
Keith, that's a waste of time and money. You get it? W-A-I-S. Waste of money. Well,
I'll tell you, I think your decision to do that was a little cuckoo for sure.
Cuckoo.
But looking back, I'm glad I never did the whole like flames tattoo on my arm. You know why?
I can't wait.
Well, because there are very few places that allow firearms inside.
Whoa. Rim shot, please.
Yeah, please, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is the show going now?
We had to beg for it, but it's all right. All right, back to Sandro. In his quest to look like a skull, get this, Sandro had his ears removed last year.
Oh, that's strange.
I can't even imagine this. No. But I guess he found the idea irresistible.
Oh!
See what I did there?
Yeah.
Yep.
I saw it.
All right, I wish this story were over, folks, but there is more. He actually plans to get his eyeballs tattooed and to cut off the tip of his nose.
Ooh.
Sandro says his extreme looks make people call him crazy.
You
think?
Yeah.
Wonder why they'd think that. But he asks people to accept him for who he is and not the way he looks. How do you close a story like this? Well, I would guess if Sandro ever gets a misspelled tattoo, he will still have, wait for it, no regrets.
Oh.
All right, staying with the unusual, a man in Park Rapids, Minnesota captured the Guinness World Record for the world's tallest Mohawk and probably should become the spokesperson for taller entryways. Social worker Joseph Gissamore began his quest for a Guinness record back in 2007. 13 years later, his full Mohican Mohawk, measuring 3 feet, 6.5 inches in height, now reigns supreme. Grissamore states that the best hair advice I can give for men is don't cut your hair. And his wife, Laura, agrees, saying she finds his hair very sexy. Well, Mr. Grissamore says he keeps his hair in braids when he's not mohawking, and he points out that doorways and ceilings are not very accommodating to his skyscraper hairstyle. But he did say when he's wearing his mohawk out in public, it's not too inconvenient because, quote, the crowd usually comes to me. Well, before we move on, I'd like to remind everyone that mohawk hairstyles are as varied and creative as their owners. Here's one, this patriotic hawk, red, white, blue, and spiky, or this Facebook hawk, which apparently already has one like.
Wow.
Are from the animal kingdom, this squirrel hawk.
Wow.
And finally, my favorite, the gecko hawk.
I love it.
Colorful and clingy. I'll tell you, wouldn't you love for your daughter to bring him home, right?
Yeah.
Yeah? And just when you thought flying on airlines couldn't get any more difficult and uncomfortable, there is a brand new video game that replicates flying in coach. It's called Airplane Mode. It's a game developed by Hosoji Aw-G, and it's touted as, quote, the only flight simulation game where players can experience the intense excitement of being an economy class passenger on a long-haul flight. Because if you've ever done that, you know what a thrill that is, huh? Anyway, the game will let you do all the things that you do to pass time on a plane, like read an airline magazine, solve puzzles, look out the window, watch old movies, and even follow the flight path of the plane. And if that doesn't sound fun enough, there's also airline meals, turbulence, and Wi-Fi outages all during the game. Crying babies are not guaranteed on every flight, according to the game's description. I don't know if you know this, but one time I remember asking a flight attendant to change my seat because of a crying baby next to me. And it turns out you can't do that if the baby is yours. Hey, Keith, do you think invisible airplanes will ever be a thing?
I'd like to see that, yes.
Well,
can't see it if it's
I
invisible.
just can't see them taking off.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, Mr. Aw-G told CNN, that was his first mistake, told CNN that his goal was, quote, to design the standardized flight and then layer it with delights, annoyances, and idiosyncrasies that the frequent flyer will surely find relatable. The game is planned for release later this year and offers flights, a 6-hour trip from New York to Iceland, or the more breezy 2.5-hour flight from New York to Halifax, Nova Scotia. And by the way, have you ever seen Chuck Norris go through airport security? He makes the TSA agents take off their shoes and belts. Yeah. Now, before we wrap things up, we wanted to share a few of these wonderful moments where, inspired by the internet, we choose to try and match the creation that we see online and come up maybe just a tad short, but lives on in Pinterest infamy. For example, this birthday cake mom decided to try to copy the cake. Maybe a little short on that one.
Yeah.
What about this teenager who did a do-it-yourself on some fashion fingernails and, well, I think she's still got to work on that one. Or what about the dad who could pumpkin spice up the baby pictures? And finally, when you want that professional picture of all the kids and you know you can just do it yourself on your phone, well, there you go. Well, just like all those Pinterest craft pros, we got to get out of here. But always remember, we read the news.
So you don't have to.
Wait, don't click that button. Well, unless it was the subscribe button, and then carry on. And while you're down there, hit that little notification bell too. Oh, and if you leave a like and a comment, I will personally give my dog Toby a treat. Leave a like, feed a dog, as I always say.